Okay. All right. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me first begin by extending a very special thank you to Edwin and his team at Social Enterprise Ghana for hosting me for the last 3 weeks while I've been developing a new export education program for them for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. I also appreciate their very kind invitation to have me speak here today. Ghana, as you know, can I have my first slide, please? Unfortunately, I don't have a clicker here, so next slide, please. The next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Ghana, as you well know, boasts a very rich agricultural heritage and a favorable climate for the production of cash crops like cacao, cotton, tobacco, products like that. Many of those products have already been very successful in global markets. And in addition, Ghanaian farmers also produce a wide range of food crops. Thank you. Take it closer to you, please. Okay. Also produce a wide range of food crops and livestock, as shown here in my slide. The country's agribusiness sector is a critical contributor to its economy, providing livelihoods to literally millions of Ghanaians and 20% of its GDP. While over 57% of Ghana is actually, next slide, please. Next slide, please. No, back one. Thank you. While 57% of Ghana may be classified as agricultural, only 24% of the country is actually cultivated. So you have a long way to go in doing food production. And of that, only 20% is actually irrigated. Now you're only 5 degrees north of the equator, so that becomes an issue. 95% of Ghana's farms are very small by global standards, at an average of only 1.6 hectares, and 60% of them are only 1.2 hectares. In Canada, where I come from, a small farm would be about 1,500 acres. So divide that, you're about 700 hectares. The reality is that all of Ghana's farms together are only able to meet about 30% of its own food requirements, and very few are actually being exported. In fact, Ghana imports over $2 billion US in food every year. Even when we take the wine and the beer off, it's still a lot of products being imported. And it has great difficulty paying for those imports because it doesn't have enough exports going out of the country to balance it, okay? Now that has a significant depressing effect on your currency. So to maximize its potential, Ghana has to transition from primarily a subsistence-based agricultural system for food crops to a much more robust export-oriented system, and you have to do that as quickly as possible. The world is going ahead and you aren't moving fast enough. The African Business Development Bank actually recognized this issue across the continent 10 years ago. And since then, they have invested over $35 billion in transforming countries in Africa, their agricultural systems. Kenya, sorry, can you move forward, please? Next slide. Thank you. Kenya, Morocco, Ethiopia, Rwanda, amongst many others, have already taken advantage of that funding to build dams to supply water for agriculture, to transition farmers to more high-value and row-intensive food crops, and more livestock. You heard pork was very high on the import list. So is beef. And it's also helped those farmers locate export markets with tremendous success. And I just want to point out one. This is Kenya. You can see that in 2000, they did less than $10,000 in avocados. Today, they do $29 million in avocados. Okay? Now, they're a product of their own success, because the other day, the U.S. government actually stopped all Kenyan avocado imports into the U.S. Why? Because new farmers were entering along with existing farmers, and they didn't realize they had to meet the international quality standards. So they were shipping too many green avocados into the market, or unripe avocados into the market. So the U.S. said, no more avocados from Kenya until you can guarantee all your products are going to be ripe. Okay? So they're doing $29 million in just that one crop. And that's with the help of the African Business Development Bank. The benefits to these other countries have been really outstanding. Some of them have, or will shortly, almost double their GDP from agriculture. They've reduced their imports. They have created thousands of jobs. And they've established downstream food processing facilities and improved, most important of all, the nutritional health of their citizens. Now, the Ghanaian Department of Agriculture has done many things to support farmers here, but if it's really serious about turning Ghana into an international global player in the agriculture business, then it immediately has to undertake a study. Can we just go back one slide? Thank you. And this is what I'm asking them to do. This is what these other countries have done very successfully with funding from the African Business Development Bank. So they've identified those crops that they can transition into. They've provided trade-offs and differentiated strategies for each region of the country. They've recommended government support actions, and whether that's, regulatory issues regarding land or financing for farmers, whatever it is, they have suggested all those. So the study has to identify all those support systems needed at the government level to make this transition less risky for you as farmers, and also to make other improvements as fast as possible. Now, Canada has been really committed to this process, and we have recently donated $135 million into helping the process by working to modernize the agricultural universities and colleges here. We've introduced new farming methods, new technologies for farmers. We've helped set up demonstration facilities and that sort of thing. The Canadian funding is already producing very tangible results. Not only are many more students better trained in modern farming practices and technologies, but maize and rice production have each increased by 5%, cassava by 7%, and sorghum by 8%. And farm visits by the Department of Agriculture have grown from 2.8 million to 3.7. So we're making some good progress. Now, my father always said, Valerie, don't wait for the government to do it for you. He was a small farmer. Don't wait for the government to do it. You may have gray hair by the time that they actually do it. So in the meantime, what I'm going to suggest to you is there's two things that I think you can do immediately. And one is get out and get some of that modern technology. Learn those modern farming practices. There's now several years of new students who are in the process of graduating or who have graduated who can help you. And the universities and colleges can also do that, and so can the extension services. So first you have to recognize that you have a lot to learn, and you have to seek out and find that information, okay? Somebody said, I didn't know we could use drones. That's the sort of thing that's very simple for you to implement, okay? So the second thing that I want to talk about is in other areas of the world where they have small farms like yours, and I'm going to use Central America as an example, they had a similar government issue, and they took it into their own hands to build cooperatives, okay? So a group of farmers with just little plots like you have here got together, and they said, we're going to create a cooperative. So by creating that as a group, you suddenly have a larger piece of land that you can cultivate. In addition, the government supported them after a while and allowed them to buy additional land. So each cooperative agrees at the beginning how it's going to be set up, who's going to do what, all those good management things. But they also decide what are the crops that we're going to plant. How are we going to rotate our crops? What kinds of technology do we need? What kinds of training do we need? And they have, as a group, decided we're going to go out and we're going to find everything that we need. And they also develop rules, because inevitably there's somebody who wants to support, be a problem. Either they don't contribute the amount of work that they do, or they decide that they aren't going to work as hard and they don't produce as good quality products. So you have to have rules for those sorts of things too in these co-ops. But as these co-ops become more and more successful, they invest in better seed, fertilizer, pesticides, much better farm equipment, wells, irrigation, and other farm technologies that help improve their specific crop quality, as well as investing in harvesting and storage facilities. And along the way, as they become bigger and bigger and they start to have more and more product, they also learn about international quality standards, certifications, and exporting, okay? Many of these cooperatives also expand into other areas. Can we just go back, please, to the banana slide? Thank you. You'll see here, the picture on the lower left corner is what some of these farms look like today. They started with 10 or 12 literally acres of land, and they have now grown into huge facilities like this. In terms of technology, they learned that by putting those blue bags around the bananas, they were able to ripen the bananas faster to be able to go to market. And you can see they've put in a food processing facility, a packaging facility, where they're actually preparing the food, their bananas, in small bunches for the American market. And in addition to that, they're also processing other banana products, so they're doing banana chips and all kinds of other things like that. Can I have the next slide, please? This is the same thing in coffee. Again, small group of small farmers got together, and look at the fields that they've got now. Huge. They have processing facilities, they have roasting facilities, they have all kinds of things. They make extensive use of technology in the coffee business, okay? But most cooperatives don't just work for farming either. They also work for many other types of businesses in the food value chain and in other sectors. So those include dairy and bakery production, food distribution systems, hardware stores, crafts, textiles, all kinds of things, beauty products, anything that where they can bring either a crop or a waste product into some kind of a new business. So you don't have to think about always having to set up a business on your own. you can actually find other people who are like-minded and work with them, put all your money together so that you have a little bit more money to actually do some of the things that you want to do, okay? These cooperatives have, in effect, become their own local, highly successful entrepreneurial ecosystems. Their rural areas actually benefit from greater prosperity. They have great economic development and job creation, and their communities are able to build better schools, get hospitals, medical clinics, and many other support or ancillary businesses grow up around these co-ops. Okay, so now I'm going to switch because I was asked to also talk about competencies for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. And you are actually, if you're one of those, you're part of the backbone of business here in Ghana. And that includes in the agri-food sector. So these businesses play a crucial role in the food chain. From primary production through to processing and export. So I'm going to spend the remainder of my time actually talking about some of the export-related competencies that you need. Can you go to the next slide, please? So export competence, no, just back one. Our competencies are the knowledge and skills that actually facilitate how firms' resources are actually developed and combined into value offerings for the export market, okay? I'm ahead of myself here. Okay, as I said earlier, I've spent the last 3 weeks here in Ghana developing a 9-lesson program for micro and small and medium-sized businesses on how to export, and it's also got a training manual with it. So SE Ghana will shortly be rolling that out into entrepreneurial hubs across the country. Each lesson is a topic that builds on the previous lesson. So you can't just go in and take one lesson and think you know it all. You need to take all the lessons, okay? I'm going to run through some of those competencies here. But the first thing that you need to learn is how to create a differentiated value proposition for your products, domestically and internationally. So recently I went into the arts market just down the street here to buy some souvenirs to take home. And what I discovered was that there must be a good 100, 150 different stalls in that market. Every single one of them was selling the same thing, okay? They all sold at the same price. There wasn't any differentiation in terms of quality. It was that price or no price. So that means that I could literally buy everything that I wanted in the first 2 stalls, and I didn't have to go through the rest of the market. Okay, so by differentiating products, can you go ahead please to the picture there? Thank you. By differentiating products, I mean products must be different from all the others that are in the market. They have to satisfy a customer need or solve a problem that their customers have. And then as marketers, you have to test that that's actually what those customers want, okay? And that they're actually willing to pay that price for what you're offering. But what people want in Ghana is not necessarily the same as what they want in Burkina Faso or in Canada or in Asia or in Germany. Here, if you look at this slide, you can see boxes of packaged cereals are the way cereal is sold in the US. It can also be sold in little mini boxes that you tear open and you pour your milk into. Germany wants flakes. So they want flakes, but they want their flakes with nuts and cranberries and blueberries and raisins and anything else they can think to stick in there as well. In China, people want a poly bag, like the green one on the right-hand side, or they want a jar. sorry, I should say a container. It's almost like a formula container, okay? So you have to think how your product is going to stack up against those. Culture plays a huge role in this. So you need to, if you're going into export markets, you have to research those markets thoroughly, okay? Can I have my next slide? Okay, the vast majority of exporters fail because they fail to do enough research. Remember that. You can never do too much research. Next slide. So amongst the competencies that you need, and I'm sorry this is so small, but you need to think about, how do I develop that value proposition? We have to do extensive research, as I just mentioned, and that includes thinking about your own business. Do you actually have the capabilities to go international? How do we locate and measure demand in other countries? And how do we select those countries, okay? Countries are different all around the world. And culture is just one of the things that you have to take into consideration. There are political systems, there's regulatory systems, there's legal systems, what did I forget? Economic, and the business systems are also very, very different. So you need to find out about all of that, or you may find that your contract isn't enforceable, or that you make a mistake. Pepsi very famously went into Southeast Asia a number of years ago, and they took in a pale blue can, okay? Sort of like Zuhair's t-shirt here, pale blue like that. What they didn't realize, somebody didn't do enough research, was that pale blue in Southeast Asia is the color of death. So people thought if they drank a can of Pepsi, they were literally going to die. So you'll find many, many mistakes like that in marketing around the world. And it's all because people don't do enough research, okay? Now, research has proven repeatedly, can I have the next slide, please? That the most successful companies start in the country that is nearest to them. And why is that? It's because next door, the languages are similar, the culture is similar, the business practices are similar, sometimes the regulatory system is similar. There's a lot of similarities, and it's a great spot for you to start. So start by picking a country that has a high demand for your product that's nearby and going there first, okay? Then slowly expand into the other countries in Africa. In the next 25 years, 5 of the biggest countries in the world are going to be here in Africa. So even if you never went any farther than Africa, you're going to be a multimillionaire, okay? Leave the developed markets to the last. Their culture is very, very different, and their business practices are hugely different. So if I'm going to take a product, an individual product, into a retailer in the United States or Canada, I'm going to pay $500,000 to $1 million just to get it parked on the shelf. If I have 5 products, multiply that by 5, okay? That doesn't apply to farmers. You're in an entirely different category. All you have to do is find an importer and away you go. But for value-added products, it's a different story. And on top of that, the companies in the US and actually in Europe too, are also going to demand that you support your introduction with anywhere from $1 to $5 million, sometimes even more, in a promotional campaign to get product moving off their shelves into customers' baskets. If it doesn't happen in the first 3 to 6 months, they throw you out, okay? So it's a very hard lesson to learn. Farmers have it easy compared to the other value-added products. So you don't run into those problems if you go to the Middle East, you go to India, or you go to China, or some other place here in Africa. You aren't going to have those same problems, okay? So in conclusion, Ghana has the potential to become a major player in the global agribusiness market, but achieving this goal actually requires a concerted effort from both the public and the private sectors. MSMEs in the agri-food business play a pivotal role in that endeavor. And by addressing your export competencies and capacity development and fostering innovation, you can be an important part of it. So thank you, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you. Okay, so we give opportunity to just 2 people, just in case you have any question, very direct and precise one for Prof. Please, do you have any question? Or you want to sit her down and then have a conversation? Okay, so please, kindly pass on the microphone. Hello.
Right here.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I really love to hear what the farmers in Canada were doing. And I like the way you brought about technology and modern farming techniques. I want to pose a question to the Canadian investors. We in Africa here are actually looking for investors to match us onto the technological market. I don't know in Canada, how is Canada ready to partner with we, the young farmers in Africa here, especially in Ghana? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And we actually, if you go to Industry Canada, which is ic.gc.ca on the web, ic.gc.ca, you will find that there's information on how to import into Canada, and they will also help set you up with potential customers for your products, okay? A lot of people also have problems figuring out, where do I find out about how big the demand is for my particular product in another country? And in the training program that I've put together, I have given you a long list of resources that are all free that you can access where you can get that information. And if you don't have a computer, then just borrow one from somebody else, or you can look it up on your phone too, any of the resources that I've suggested, okay? All of the how to find information on the countries, how to find information on the size of the markets, all of that is in the training program, okay? Thank you.